heading westbound. I had my 32-year-old nephew, my sister-in-law's oldest son, with me in the car, and we were headed westbound on the 202, and the headlights were coming the other direction on the other side of the median, and one of the headlights went like this, back and forth a little bit, and all of a sudden it spun out completely, slid all the way across 4 lanes of their side of the freeway and hit the dirt embankment. The dirt flipped the car in the air, it flipped twice. And I could tell, I was about in the middle lane, I could tell it was going to come down just about where I was going to be in about a half a second. So something told me to move left. And I did. And sure enough, just as I went by, it came down in the lane that I had been in. And it landed right side up. And we stopped and ran back expecting death and blood and all kinds of things, and the lady walked away. She had been cut off by somebody on the other side of the freeway, kind of forced her to the right. When she tried to come back to the left, she overcorrected and lost control. And all the way across, flipped over twice, and came down right where we were. And every day since then, the skies have looked a little bluer. The food has tasted a little better. I won't tell you how good my wife looks, but it's pretty good. So I am really happy to be here. Now, what do you say about a friend who beat you in the primary? Well, I say I wish he had run for treasurer one more term. But let me tell you that when we were out on the campaign trail, over and over again, I would notice that Treasurer Ducey at the time, now Governor Ducey, was saying a lot of the same things that I was saying. Talking about either getting rid of income tax or driving it as close to zero as possible. Talking about leaving Arizona better when we're finished with whatever we do than when we started. But the one, and there were several others, but for time's sake, the one though that I really appreciated was getting Arizona's fiscal house in order. And I know a little bit about that because I was in the Senate the last time the budget was really balanced without temporary tax increases and things like that. And so I really appreciated knowing that this would be a focus of Doug if he got elected. And sure enough, I want you to know that tremendous progress was made with his leadership and the legislature in the recently concluded session in getting Arizona's fiscal house in order. You may not know this, but yeah, that's worth a clap. In the last 9 or 10 years, the only time that our income exceeded our expenses was a couple years when the temporary sales tax was in place. But that went away, much to the credit of Doug, Treasurer Ducey at the time, because he led the charge to make sure that Arizona voted no against a permanent $1 billion tax increase for the rest of our lives. And he is to be applauded for that, and I supported him at that time as well. But when that $1 billion went away, it put Arizona back into what a lot of us call in the business down there, a structural deficit. Now there's a requirement in the Constitution that by midnight of the last day of the fiscal year, there has to be at least $1 in the general fund balance. But a lot of times that happens by sweeping money in from here or there, doing all kinds of tricks and gimmicks. But Doug faced and focused on getting our fiscal house in order. We don't admit it too many times because we have had a good Republican governor and legislature the last few years, but since that tax went away, for example, this year, the budget that we're in right now is over $700 million out of structural balance. And the efforts led by Governor Ducey and the legislature cut that deficit. We haven't got there quite yet, but it cut the deficit from over $700 million to about $250 million this year. And that's a huge progress in 1 year. There's work still to be done, and I know that he is committed in doing this and providing the leadership to make this happen. Next year, I think it's projected that we'll cut the deficit in half again. But if the economy picks up, and I know that's going to be his next focus, is jump-starting the economy, we might be able to achieve structural balance either next year or in 2018. But I really appreciate Governor Ducey's leadership on making sure that Arizona lives within its means. And he did a great job of pulling the legislative leadership together. But I'm going to close by saying something that I appreciate his love of Arizona. But what makes me admire him the most is that his love for Arizona is, I think, probably about third on his list. One is God, and two is his family. And I think they're probably one and the same. If you've ever met his wife, Angela, or one of his three boys, you can tell that this is a man who has placed his focus and his efforts in the right places. And that is being strong in his faith and leading a family. And he has a wonderful and beautiful family. And I know that he is committed to making Arizona better when he's finished than it was when he got here. Our Governor, Doug Ducey.
Thank you very much, Ken. That's about as nice an introduction as anybody's ever given. Very great. You know, there was the last time I was in this room, it seems like yesterday, but I think it was about a year ago, this same meeting. And we had a forum, myself and, what was it, the 17 other Republicans running in the primary? And that was Ken mentioned it, so I want to mention it. It was a hard-fought campaign, but I'm proud of what we do as Republicans. The same in the presidential. Well, we don't have coronations, right? We believe in competition. He mentioned my wife, Angela, who sends her regards. And you know she's active in her Republican club as well. But she was doing that before I was running for office. So she's not highly political. She didn't enjoy a lot of the primary part of the debate. But she'd watch it on TV or listen on the radio. They had this trick question during the primary. And it's also funny, Billy, to me, remember the question here last year was, who's the ideal governor? And the answer that got such spontaneous applause was Scott Walker. But they'd ask the candidates this trick question of, if not you, who would you vote for to be the next governor? It's kind of a tricky question because very competitive primary. Most of us tried to avoid it. And I'd go home and Angela would say to me, well, I'll tell you who I'd vote for if it wasn't for you. It would be Ken Bennett. You raised a good boy, Mrs. Bennett. I also want to say to Billy and Sarah, did I hear that the bank balance of your club is $45,000? I mean, 49? I mean, that's more than a lot of state agencies. Well done, and that's fiscal responsibility. It's great to be back here. It's great to be in Yavapai County. I'm also always grateful for the warm reception that I receive here. Prescott has been so good to me. It doesn't seem like it's that long ago that I was standing on those courthouse steps on that very chilly evening. And then who would have thought that we would have this good, positive result through a hard-fought general election. So I just want to thank you for your support. Not just on my behalf, but on all the other Republicans you helped champion into office. You are truly the backbone of this party, and we couldn't do it without you. It's also an honor to be addressing this group, the largest women's Republican club in the country, and that's an amazing testament to the work you've done over the years. You know, we just finished last Wednesday our first 100 days in office. And I have the pleasure of going around the state and sharing with you some of our more significant achievements. I want to share this with you today, starting with some that I think are more important than others or that need to be highlighted. Together, not only were we able to balance a budget in record time, but we also concluded one of the shortest sessions in Arizona history. It was the fastest session since the moon landing. You know, Mark Twain once said that no man's life, liberty, or property are safe as long as the legislature's in session. And while I generally agree with this axiom, our legislature didn't limit liberty this session, they expanded it. So I want to give a well-deserved shout out to our leading legislators that are here. Let's give a thank you to Senator Pierce, Representative Campbell, and Representative Pham. Wonderful work. You can't get much of the good stuff that we got done without partnership with leaders in the legislature, so I want you to know that I'm grateful for that. It's just the beginning, and I want to continue that. I also, again, want to say thank you to leaders like Ken Bennett and Mayor Kuykendall for the opportunity to be here and for your great service to Prescott and the state of Arizona. They say Washington, D.C. is the place where good ideas go to die. But in Arizona, we got things done. And we did it by working together as partners on shared goals, guided by shared values. The reality is, whether it was on the budget, economic growth, tax reform, or education, we led. And we led together. Thanks to the fast work of the legislature, in January, we became the first state in the nation to pass the American Civics Act. Now every student in our state will graduate from high school with a basic understanding of our government and our common heritage. You know, I was just at the Joe Foss Institute dinner last night. Joe Foss was an Air Force fighter pilot in World War II and former governor in the Dakotas. And their goal was to have this pass across the country. Jay Leno was actually the headliner. You know, and I used to think it was funny when Jay would do his jaywalking segments on The Tonight Show. You know, he'd go up and ask some American citizen how many stars are on the flag. And they'd answer, I can't count them, it's waving too fast. And I think there was a time where we thought that was funny. But then when it was our kids coming out of high school, we said, no longer. We know that it's vital. President Reagan told us, if we forget what they did, we won't know who we are. And before that, President John Adams said that all of our children should be instructed in the lessons of liberty. I want you to know that it was the first bill I signed, and we were the first state in the nation to sign the American Civics Act. So thank you, Your Honor. And we did it in a bipartisan way, because that is not a political issue. That is a patriotic issue. Speaking of first, we were also the first in the nation in Arizona to appoint a woman to direct the Arizona Department of Veteran Services. Colonel Wanda Wright is a retired member of the Air Force National Guard, a graduate of the Air Force Academy and the United States Air Force, and now she's leading Veteran Services. So once again, let's give a shout out to her and all of our veterans that are here today. On the economic front, expanding enterprise in the state by reducing unnecessary regulations was a real theme of this session. And so was our commitment to operating government at the speed of business. In February, the day after Arizona hosted the most watched Super Bowl in history, We brought the most successful company in history to Arizona. Apple will make one of their largest investments ever in our state, a $2 billion global command center. Even Apple remarked they've never seen government move so fast. Turns out we are just getting started. Earlier this month, we hosted a signing ceremony with Elizabeth Holmes, the youngest self-made female billionaire in the world. Thanks to that legislation, Elizabeth's innovative company, Theranos, is expanding here in Arizona, offering laboratory testing directly to Arizonans from a licensed lab without the need of a physician's orders. This is good for business, it's good for freedom, and it does more to lower the cost of healthcare than anything they're doing in Washington, D.C., and it happened right here in our state. We're proud of those two huge successes, but we also kept our eye on small businesses, entrepreneurs, startups, the little guys. Microbreweries will now be able to keep their beer flowing because we wiped out outdated regulations that were limiting their success. And I know Prescott, at least I hear Prescott has some pretty good craft beer establishments. So this will benefit you and the rest of the state, and I think also sends a signal that Arizona is open up for business, and we will welcome entrepreneurial and innovative companies here. I think we can all agree that it is government's job to work for us, not over us, to stand by our side and not ride on our back. And all the reforms we passed in this session were in that spirit. For too long in this state, we had an outdated tax policy that punished people for getting a raise. As promised throughout my campaign and in my State of the State, we permanently indexed Arizona's income tax to inflation. So now, if you receive a living raise, a cost of living raise, because inflation increased, you won't pay higher taxes due to the higher tax bracket. This is a win for small businesses, taxpayers, and a win for the state of Arizona. Of course, as Ken mentioned, the hardest part of this past session was the budget. We inherited a $1 billion budget shortfall, and I knew even before taking office it wasn't going to be easy or popular, and it wasn't. Our government was spending money it just didn't have. But we were elected to lead. We had to make some difficult decisions, but ones that were ultimately right for the state of Arizona, and ones that everyone in this audience and every small businessman has had to make over the last several years. We had to fight for the future of our state and for taxpayers. Our budget is now on the path to structural balance for the first time since 2007. And now that the session's over, we're not going to slow down. As you know, I've directed the Arizona Board of Education to replace Common Core. This is the quickest and most responsible way to get rid of this and put our standards back in place. Parents and teachers want Arizona standards, not standards that are tied to Washington, D.C. and the federal bureaucracy. Parents, citizens, and teachers will be a part of this process, and it will be transparent. I also want you to know that we imposed a government-wide hiring freeze. We have 27% of the state's eligible workforce that's eligible for retirement in the next 4 years, so we're doing more with less. and this has resulted in a savings of $1.2 million already. So expect more exciting job announcements soon. I'm committed to making Arizona the best place in the nation to live, work, play, recreate, retire, visit, build and start a business, and get an education. And I'm going to be out and about aggressively pitching our state, all regions of our state, all 15 counties of our state, to companies looking to build or expand. As we continue our work over the next 4 years, you will likely hear a lot of talk about the governor's agenda or the governor's policies. But you and I both know that the ideas I have and will continue to push are not mine alone. They are our ideas. They are the ideas of our cause, often only brought to life through legislation. These are the ideas that originated from our founders, that were reinvigorated by Senator Barry Goldwater, and were restored for America by President Ronald Reagan. Over the next 4 years, just as we have over the last 100 days, we will continue to act on these ideas. These reforms will not come easy, but I believe and know we can accomplish them as long as we continue to work together. I believe these reforms will produce results. In fact, I know they will. Results Arizonans have been waiting for. Results that will lead to more jobs and a better opportunity for all of our citizens. Results that will pave a better path for our children and our children's children. And together, these results will lead to the recovery we have all been longing for. The work will be hard. There will be many obstacles in our way. But remember, every time we stand together in the promotion of what we believe in, it unifies our party and benefits our state. And when you hear the special interests bash our ideas, say to you that the old way, the status quo is the best way, stand up and defend our ideas, and let's beat them at the ballot box. Let it be known that our concern is for a certain special interest that has too long been neglected. The hard-working Arizona taxpayer. It's a new day in a new Arizona. In the last 3 months, we began an era of optimism with bold ideas and fresh leadership. I have faith that our work will lead to a rebirth in our state, in Arizona, and I'm counting on you to join with me, and I want you to know that I will give this work all that I have in me. Together, we can show a restless nation how Arizona is poised to take a leading role in the recovery of the American economy. Again, I want to wish all of you here and thank you, the more than 600 Republican women of Prescott that are part of this club. It's just amazing to me the size and success and the role that you'll play in this upcoming cycle and in the good policies that come out of our state legislature. So let me just extend my appreciation to this group one more time for your continued support and partnership, and for all you do to move the Republican Party forward in our state and our country. Thank you, and God bless.